Worship, and we already started the day out great with worship. I get to have the rest of the fun and talk about the Lord. We started the weekend great with the Ducks. I noticed we have a Ram fan here. I live outside of St. Louis in St. Charles, the other end of the Oregon Trail, and we always come out for a couple Oregon games every year. Born and raised in Eugene, so best of both worlds this weekend, get to go to church, and we saw the Oregon Ducks win. I'm going to tell you a story that's kind of hard to wrap your mind around if you haven't heard of anything like this before, but it happened, it's true, and we get to talk about the Lord today. If I told you everything about what happened, it would take several hours. So if there's anything that you've experienced here that is like this, come and talk to me afterwards. Or if you have any more questions about what happened, what the Lord showed me, we can talk afterwards. For those that are curious. Can you hear me okay out there? All right. Not used to holding the microphone. I'm kind of one of these guys. My arms all around. So my story started November 10th.
Hold on, let's get you a good mic then.
Okay.
Yeah. I ain't scared. Give me that one, I'll trade you.
There we go. November 12th, 2019 was the best day of my life.
Wait for the microphone. We don't do things with production around here. We interrupt the stuff all the time. We're just family, so
Yep.
I'm gonna give you this one.
Okay.
And we'll give you a pack and.
That's great.
Cool. Just talk among yourself for a minute.
Wow. It is high tech.
I guess you can edit this out.
Was there something wrong with that mic?
No, that's what it stand. You didn't want to have to hold it the whole time.
Yeah, we did, her firm slid down and go up that one hill. And then big white house.
Thank you guys for being patient this morning. We'll get the microphone turned on, and we're all just regular folk here today, just worshiping and praising the Lord. Are we good back there?
Let me see your pack real quick. I want to make sure it's turned on.
It's not on.
All right, there we go.
There it is.
Now I can use my show me arms coming from Missouri. So November 12th, 2019 was the best day of my life. It was the worst day of my life, and it could have been really, really bad for my family, but it was the best day of my life. It was the day that I died. I know a lot of us have had a tough year this past year. And I've got a heavy heart today. 2 weeks ago, one of my best friends in St. Louis, great Christian brother, passed away from COVID. Younger man, 51, went in the hospital. 2 weeks later, he's passed away. So we're still losing people. But what's great is hopefully there's somebody today that is going to meet the Lord for the first time. And hopefully we all get to spend eternity in heaven with the Lord. So I got up on a Sunday morning and I was getting ready for church and I had a sore throat. This is November 10th, 2019. And I am going to tell a story, but I'm just the guy up here. This isn't about me. I'm just a regular guy like everybody else. Love the Lord. Love my wife, my mom and dad, my grade school friend that's here this morning. It's kind of an unusual situation for you guys. I can tell you that I love you. And the reason I can tell you that is because God loves me. And He loved me first. And God sent His Son to earth to die for me because He loved me. but he loves all of you guys, and he loves you so much. And I hope I can tell you a little bit about how much he loves us today. So I'm on my way to church. I have a sore throat, and I decided I can't go to church. I've got strep throat. So I pulled into one of those mini marts of health care things. It was called an urgent care. And I thought I had strep throat. So I went in, told the doctor I've got strep throat. She looked at me. I had swelling. I could see something inside my mouth that looked like strep throat. And she said, no, you just have the upper respiratory thing that's going around. Well, of course, that's been going around. They always say that. Whenever I go to the doctor, it's an upper respiratory thing. So I went home. I didn't want to go to church. I knew I had strep throat. The test was negative. I could see swelling. I could see a spot. Didn't want to go to church. So I went home and basically laid around the house all day. It was a beautiful day like this. The wife's working in the yard. But by then, I'm even in more pain. And so I didn't do anything all day. That night, I slept in our guest bedroom. Didn't want to get the wife sick. And had been increasing in pain and swelling all day that Sunday. So that night, I've got to see the doctor the next day. So I'm at my doctor's office at 9 a.m. Monday morning. And because I was in so much pain, it was getting hard to breathe and swallow. And I knew I was really sick. So I got in right away to see the doctor. They took blood tests, did a strep throat. Nothing wrong with you. But we'll send the blood out and, we'll call you back. Take 2 aspirin, call me in the morning, basically. So that night is now Monday night. I'm in the guest bedroom and I can't sleep. I'm in so much pain. It's hard to describe so much pain to where you can't take any more pain. Maybe like having a baby pain. And it's 4:15 in the morning and I can't breathe. I'm sitting up. It's become harder and harder to swallow. And I'm just sitting there and I feel a tap on my shoulder. And the Lord said to me, and when you hear the Lord's voice, you know it. I mean, there's no, what I hear. It was the Lord's voice. And he said, Kendall, you need to get to the emergency room now. You're dying. Well, that's pretty shocking to hear that out of the blue. And it was, a real voice in my head. Kendall, you need to go to the hospital now. You're dying. So I went in our bedroom. I woke up my wife, Susan, and she's a hard sleeper. I'm a heavy snorer. She wears earplugs. So I went in to wake her up and said, Susan, you need to take me to the hospital. I'm dying. And she kind of woke up a little bit. So I left the room and I started walking around the house. And I'm thinking, okay, I know this was the Lord, but what do? My wife's asleep. The Lord says I'm dying. My wife's asleep. Okay. So I walked around a few minutes until the Lord said again, Kendall, you need to get to the emergency room now. You're dying. So I went in the second time and woke my wife, Susan, up. She woke up a little bit more this time, but not all the way. She made some sense. She said, you've seen 2 doctors in 2 days. Why don't we go again in the morning when the doctor's office opens? Thought about that, and I went and walked around the dark house, and it's about 4:45 a.m. now in the morning. And for the 3rd time, the Lord said, Kendall, you need to get to the emergency room now. You're dying. And on the 3rd time, I was convinced that I'm getting my wife up out of bed. So I walked in the room, threw on some sweatpants, turned the light on, said for the 3rd time to my wife, Susan, you need to take me to the emergency room. I'm dying. She looked at me, jumped up, we jumped in my truck and went to the hospital about 10 minutes away. By the time I got there, I was too weak to get out of my truck. So they brought up a wheelchair, took me right in. By now, my blood pressure is dropping through the floor. My body is in complete septic shock. So when I get to the hospital, I'm in shock and I'm dying and I'm in critical condition. I can barely swallow. I'm having trouble breathing in my throat. It looks like a bullfrog on Jabba the Hutt from back in the day. It's like this now. And this is less than 36 hours from my first sore throat. I go into the hospital. I'm in critical condition. At this point, I'm in full septic shock. My kidneys are shutting down. My blood pressure is dropping through the roof. And we have to wait for the ENT surgeon to come in. And they don't know what kind of surgery they have to do, but they know that if they don't get me in right away, that I'm not going to make it. So they move me out of the emergency room, and I'm next to the operating room. And it's getting close to 7 a.m. now. We're still waiting for the ENT surgeon to come in and do surgery on me. They've got me hooked up. I've got all the monitors on. There's a nurse by my side. There's 2 or 3 other doctors. They say in their reports that I've read later that they're, at this point, just trying to keep me alive, waiting for the surgeon to get in there. So we're waiting for the surgeon. I see him walk in. He does a quick stop and chat with the anesthesiologist and looks at me just briefly. And so I've been fighting for hours, just waiting for the surgeon to get in here so I can feel better. So they stop and chat, and they head their other direction to get washed up, and I know I'm going to get relief soon, so I closed my eyes and I went to sleep. I'm looking at the clock. It's now 7:21. I was supposed to be in the surgery at 7 a.m. 2 of the surgeons were arguing over who's going to do the surgery. I could hear that way in the background and then talk to them about it later. So instead of 7 a.m., it's now 7:21, and I know I'm going to be going in soon, so I close my eyes and I fall asleep. But I didn't fall asleep. I died at this point. My heart stopped. I quit breathing. My kidneys, my organs were shutting down because I was in septic shock. So when I closed my eyes, and dying is easy. I was in a lot of pain. Pain is not fun, and that's hard, but the dying part is really easy. And I found myself with the Lord. So when I wake up my eyes hours later, I've been alive this whole time. And I've been experiencing something that I'm going to share with you. Because when I closed my eyes, it didn't go black. I didn't dream. I was with the presence. I was with the Lord in eternity. And there's a lot I could talk about eternity and time and space and how that works. But just know that eternity is outside of time. And that our time and space is separate from eternity. So I've been really seeking the Lord. What am I supposed to do, Lord? What is my purpose? I mean, I'm 61 now. I had been praying for months before that. Lord, I'm retired now. I'm in fairly good shape. I want to do stuff for you. I know we are supposed to witness, to take people to heaven with us. So what is my purpose, Lord? I'm just a regular guy. I've got time on my hands now. I want to do something for you. And so the Lord let me ask him what my purpose was. So when I'm in the hospital and I wake up and I hear the doctor saying, "Wow, Kendall," he goes, "you were 1 or 2 minutes away from being dead. And he explained that later, that I was 1 or 2 minutes from them being able to bring me back. So it took 6 minutes. They had to do an emergency tracheotomy, put a tracheostomy tube in, and get my heart started and get me breathing and my organs going again and stuff. So it took them 6 minutes to get oxygen in my lungs and to get my heart started again. So what he meant 1 or 2 minutes away, if I had gone 6 to 7 minutes, they probably would not have been able to bring me back. But we know that the Lord's conquered the grave, and I was coming back no matter what or how long it was going to be.
Amen.
The Lord was bringing me back. So I woke up my eyes, and the doctor is saying, 1 or 2 minutes away from being dead, and I'm thinking, well, that's not even the most interesting thing happening right now in my brain. I'm looking at a hospital wall, just a regular wall, and my whole perspective had changed. I'd been like a man in a cave looking outside the cave and watching things walk by. And then when I opened my eyes, after being with the Lord, just having surgery in the hospital, I'm stepped out of the cave and I'm a new man. My perspective has changed. So while the doctor's talking about me being dead, well, normally that would be the most interesting thing, but it wasn't. Just looking at this normal wall and knowing what I had been through and how my perspective had changed and what the Lord had done and shown me. And that's what I'm going to tell you about today. And when you guys leave today, I hope you love me a little bit. You know, it's easy. I love my wife, my mom and dad are here. I hope you guys take this love each other a little bit more, and take that love out into your community that's so longing and so hurting for love out there.
Yes.
So the Lord let me ask him what my purpose was. So when I opened my eyes and the doctor's talking, and I'm looking at this wall, my perspective had changed because I was now a new person from what I had experienced. And I look over and I see my wife and two of my grown children standing there. Of course, scared to death. I didn't know everything that was happening back on earth, but it was quite exciting, I guess. And I looked at my wife and kids and I said, I know what God's purpose is for me. I know what God's purpose is for everyone. And that is to love one another and to love God. So my purpose that I had been seeking for my whole life, I already knew what it was. We all know what our purpose is to love one another. I mean, it's pretty easy. Now, we each have a specific purpose and plan that then God uses our love for other people to fulfill his will and plan in our lives, but it starts with us loving God and loving other people. So the Lord not only told me what my plan and purpose for all of us was, but he showed me, and he took me to two different scenes in eternity, in time. So I'm going to try to describe this briefly. We're in eternity, I'm with the Lord, and we're looking down at time and space, and he reaches down and he picks up two events that happened in his life. And they kind of went together like photons, and I experienced it at the same time, but chronologically. I went to two different events. I was there at the same time in eternity, but I experienced them in chronological order. So I was gone 6 minutes, but I was gone a lot longer than that. Eternity is very hard to explain. So I opened my eyes, the first scene that the Lord took me with, and he's standing right behind me. And I know there's a courtyard in back of me, and I'm looking in an alcove room smaller than this, and it's made out of limestone blocks. And I'm looking at about a half a dozen or more Roman soldiers. They're off duty. They're in this alcove. They're drinking and they're carousing, and I can tell they're gambling and stuff. And I'm standing there looking at this, and I know it's a bright sunny day. It's the middle of the day. It's warm on my skin. I can feel everything like I'm standing there. And the Lord doesn't want me to turn around. He just wants, he has me standing there looking at this scene. And I'm thinking, well, I know I'm in Jesus' time. What am I looking at? And I feel a presence to my left, and I look over, and I see this man. I'm going to call him the swine because he looked like a swine. This ugly, big, tall Roman soldier, bald head, wearing a thin, ratty shirt, and he had mud smears and mud spatters all over his body and all over his head. And I'm thinking, well, I can feel warmth on me. I'm seeing this. I know it's sunny. I don't know where he got these mud smears and mud splatters on him. And while I'm looking at him, thinking about that, two other soldiers walk in, dragging a man to his left. And they walk in and they throw him on the left-hand wall, and I know I see that it's the Lord. They throw him up against the wall, and I'm looking at him from the side, and the soldiers are still gambling and drinking, carousing. And the Lord is just from head to toe. He's got gashes. I'm looking on his right side. He has his head down. There's blood, sweat dripping off his head. He's covered with sweat and blood and huge gashes all over his body. I can see it from his ankle all up. He's got huge gashes and tears and blood all over. Horrible. And then as soon as I realized it was the Lord that they had thrown down, that the swine, that big ugly soldier, that wasn't mud spatters and mud spots I'm saw on. It was blood. He had smears of blood and he had mud splatters and stuff because he was one of the men that had just got through flogging the Lord, hitting him with a whip that had 8 or 9 leather straps on it that had metal and bits of bone and ceramic that when it would hit his body, it would just make huge gashes and dig into the flesh, cause so much pain. And that's when I realized that this ugly soldier, this man, he had enjoyed what he had done, the pain and the flogging that he had inflicted on the Lord. So it's hard for me to look at this. This is Jesus. I know he has done nothing wrong and he's going through this pain for me. Is this okay? Okay. So the swine looks at this young soldier and he said, go over there and make this king a crown. He needs a crown. And he pointed at this tree bush and it had big needle spikes on it, like this all over. And the young soldier came back and it was kind of like this mass. It wasn't a perfectly round crown. It was like this mass of these iron, sharp-looking thorns. And the swine went over to the young soldier and he grabbed it gingerly and tenderly. Here's this big, ugly man who had just inflicted all this pain on Jesus, who had done nothing to deserve it. And he is afraid to get a little pinprick from the needle, and he grabbed it like that, and he set it on the Lord's head, and he reached in and he picked up this dowel, this stick about 3 foot long. I knew immediately what it was when he picked it up. It was a stick that they used to beat the prisoners with. And he picked that up and hit the Lord twice on the top of the head, and just drove those thorns into his scalp and into his skull. And it was at that point that he began to just say horrible things to the Lord. And I couldn't see it anymore. I said, Jesus, please, I don't want to see this anymore. Please, Lord, I can't take this anymore. And he put his hand, he's still standing in back of me, put one hand right here and the other hand here. And he took me to the next scene. And the next scene that he showed me was we're at the cross. I'm above the cross. And when I say showed me, I felt like I was really there. So when I tell you that I'm seeing these things and stuff, it's not like watching a movie. I was there. I don't know if I had a body. I didn't look down. I felt like I had a body. The Lord and I communicated in complete thoughts and kind of a knowing. There wasn't any question about our communication. I mean, it was a complete knowing and transfer of thoughts. So I'm at the cross, literally at the cross, and it's dark, and I'm thinking, well, this is weird. Huge, thick, black clouds, and there was just one thin blue line coming through. So everything was in dark shadow. And I was kind of confused because, okay, just a minute ago, it's the middle of the day, and for a period of time, whenever I would tell this part of the story, I'd say, I don't know why it was dark. All I know is it was dark, and I could just barely see everything around me. Well, it wasn't until several weeks later when I had reread in Matthew the crucifixion scene and how it was dark from the 9th to the 6th to the 9th hour, from noon until 3 o'clock. It was dark. The whole earth mourned. Light was shut out. And that's why it was dark. The Bible said it was dark. Okay, now I understand why it was so dark. So I'm looking down at the cross. And Jesus drops his head out of extreme pain and all the torture that he had gone through at the hands of this man. And he as he dropped his head, he looked down, and there was this swine, this horrible soldier, this man that had inflicted so much pain and shame and stuff on the Lord. He looked down at him. Now, he thought he would have enough of torture and stuff like that, but he came to the crucifixion because he wanted to see this through to the end. He literally was smirking and smiling, this soldier who had partaken in the flogging. He wanted to see his dirty work to the end. And the Lord looked down, and he was standing there holding his cloak. He was a soldier that had just won the cloak. And they decided to gamble for it because they didn't want to tear it up because it was in one solid piece. And when the Lord dropped his head out of pain and exhaustion from the cross, it's that man, the soldier, the swine, who had inflicted so much pain, that's who he looked at. And he said, Father, forgive them. Of course, they know not what they do. But he was looking at that man when he said, Father, forgive them. And as he said, Father, forgive them, this explosion and tsunami of love exploded from Jesus, from the cross. And it went through me, around the world, into the sky, into space, into the universe, through all eternity. The love of Christ exploded. Wow. That song that we read, it's an unfathomable love. And it's hard to explain a feeling of love that is so complete, there's no shame. It's acceptance. It's unfathomable. And the greatest thing about it is the love that Jesus has for us. We will continue to feel that in a greater and greater way throughout eternity, the more that we learn about God. And God is love. Our strength comes from God, who is love. Our strength comes from love. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. God is love. The love that we show each other here, it doesn't stop. Like throwing a rock into a pebble in a pond. The ripples of love, when they go out, they don't get smaller and smaller. They get bigger and bigger throughout eternity. Love doesn't end. The love that God has for us is without end. Jesus died on the cross, went through that horrible pain for us. And what are we supposed to do? Just love each other. I mean, it's pretty easy. It's really hard, but it's pretty easy. I mean, that's all we have to do. We love other people. God loved us first. Jesus proved his love and set the bar high. I mean, how much love did he have for us that he died on that horrible, stupid cross, but all the torture and pain that he went through before that? I mean, Pastor's going to ask you if you want to experience that love today. I'm definitely a new person, a different person. When you have an experience, of course, you cannot, like that, you cannot be unchanged. The Lord has done so many great things and used this testimony in such a super fantastic way. I'm going to just tell you one way that the Lord used this. A couple weeks later, the very next day out of the hospital, when I got out of 7 days in ICU, and I told Pastor Joseph this, and I'm going to share this with you. The last thing that I said when I left the hospital to my wife was, God did all the hard work. I get all the fun. Meaning I get to talk about the Lord. I got to experience this and feel this love. Well, that's a love that God has freely given us, and all we have to do is ask. I met a man last Sunday, 86 years old, experienced the love of the Lord for the very first time and was baptized. 86 years old. There's some younger people in here and there's some older people. Doesn't matter how old you are. We can still bring some of those people to heaven with us when we go. Maybe it's been a long time since you felt that first love of the Lord. Well, it's real. You can get that back this month.
Amen.
We can have that all the time. And all we need to do, you don't have to look for the perfect opportunity to show love to other people, because you can see it every day. There's chances and opportunities to show love every single day. And for a long time, it was easy for me to do that because I'd been there, I'd had this experience, I felt the physical presence of the Lord's love. Well, that was great for months afterwards, but then that feeling began to fade, and now I had to choose love. So I'm on the phone, I get a call from an Indian scam artist calling from India. They accidentally charged $99 to my account. If I would just give them my credit card number and information, they'd be able to put that $99 right back on my card. So I knew right away this wasn't going to happen. And my old Kindle kind of took over for a sec. I got mad. Here's a guy calling from India. I can hear he's in a boiler room with a bunch of people calling old American folks trying to steal their money. So I started to get mad at first, and I said, how can you do this? You're a thief, and you're stealing money from people. And then all of a sudden, love took over. I had to choose to let love in because I was mad. Here's a guy trying to steal from me, calling from halfway around the world. But love came over, and I let the Holy Spirit take over. And I let Him speak through me and use me and let God's love come through me. I don't know what I said completely, but after 15 minutes, I finally said, "Are you still there?" And he said, "Kendall, I need Jesus." Said, "You can accept Jesus right now, and this is what we're going to do." I said a prayer with him. Said, "You don't have to say it out loud because I can hear there's a lot of other people, and I know in India," he was in Mumbai, just outside of Mumbai, began to talk to him about him. Knew that there's a lot of persecution going on in India. But by the end of a conversation from a little old man that had an experience in St. Charles, Missouri, talking to a thief in Mumbai, India, that thief got saved. I didn't tell him that I had went through all of this. All I did was talk to him about the love of Jesus and what Jesus did for me, what Jesus did for him. The fact that Jesus came down and suffered the most horrible experience anybody could go through, frankly. I mean, it's incomprehensible the pain that he suffered and went through us, but how much he loves us. And that's the love that we can experience each day. And that's all we're supposed to do, is just love each other. And, the pastor's going to pray with us here in a little bit. And if you haven't experienced the love of the Lord, now's the time to do it. No time to waste. We know that